Good morning. It's Tuesday, April 27th, and we are nearing the 100-day mark for President Biden. And so I think it's only fair that we review his first 100 days and see how well he has done with the deeds that he promised to accomplish. And right now, in my mind, it's not 100% done with it. And we'll see deed by deed where it stands. On COVID-19, he assembled the coronavirus task force. And he pushed and got immediate coronavirus legislation. And he released a vaccine distribution plan. And he rejoined the World Health Organization, and he kept Dr. Fauci as a close advisor. There are many out there who think that Dr. Fauci is the wrong guy, but nevertheless, there are many, many who respect him. So that's up to you whether you think that's a good deed or a bad deed. On the economy, he has not yet reversed the corporate tax cut, nowhere near achieving that goal. On the environment, he organized a World Climate Summit, but he hasn't made the U.S. an international leader on climate change. And according to the notes, it says it's complicated. Well, everything is complicated, but he didn't get it done. On racial equity, extend the Voting Rights Act. Not yet. That'll be hung up in the Congress and the Senate for a while yet, so that's not achieved. And he was going to institute the National Police Oversight Commission. Forget that. That has been dropped. On immigration, which is probably the most difficult task he has to do, he introduced legislation for a pathway to citizenship for immigrants in the U.S. illegally. So that's done. As far as DACA and making DACA permanent, not done. Very complicated, not done. We don't know where that stands. Stop family separation at the U.S.-Mexico border, not done. Not done. Very complicated, so it's not done yet. And I've got to say one thing. Everything about immigration is complicated. It's not a defensive thing, that's just a fact. He did establish a task force to reunite children and parents separated at the border. And he ended Trump's executive order banning travelers from some Muslim-majority countries. But he couldn't stop migrant protection protocols and asylum, the metering policy. That's not yet done. And he hasn't defunded border wall construction because that's another thing that's complicated. I don't know why it's complicated. You just stop spending. But it's not done. He did increase government supervision over the U.S. border and over the immigration agency. So that's a task that's done. As far as foreign policy is concerned, he has not yet picked up the pieces of Donald Trump's broken foreign policy. And there are many, many pieces exist in that broken foreign policy. But it's not done. And it's another thing that's deemed to be complicated. Well, let me tell you that everything that the federal government does is complicated or is made complicated by the people who are trying to work on it. So if it's complicated, it's maybe complicated because the task really is complicated or because the people attacking it are not qualified to do the job or have the wrong idea on what has to be done. And then as far as the international summit, that has not yet happened either. So if we look at the first 100 days, while he's been trying very, very hard to get things done, I would have to give him a B-. There are too many important things that haven't been accomplished, haven't been achieved yet. Now, there are many reasons why some of them are not yet achieved. They're not necessarily all Biden's fault. After all, he is the leader, but he requires some help, some compromise from various organizations within the government. And he hasn't been able to get that yet. Even within his own party, there are dissenters on many things. So I expect that the deeds that were going to be accomplished in the first 100 days, while some of them have not yet started, many of them have started, and they will just have to run their course. But in my mind, there's too many of these things that are considered complicated and not yet completed. So you get a B- because when you looked at the whole thing, you promised too much. And maybe the American people were looking for somebody to promise a lot of these things. So that's where we stand. So all in all, I'd have to say that I am satisfied with what he's done so far. But I am not satisfied with the gun violence that still exists in this country. And I am really very unhappy about the situation with the Asian population and Asian hatred that seems to be rampant in this country. And I'm not sure why all of a sudden this thing has cropped up and become a major issue. The only thing that I could think about with respect to that is the constant reference to the China virus by our former president. And yesterday, or the day before actually, an Asian man was beaten on a street in New York City, 125th Street in New York City, beaten up by a perpetrator who stood over him and kicked him in the head many times, according to the reports. And you know the worst part? There were bystanders that didn't step up and help this guy, help this helpless Asian man. So that's a big black mark. Not on Biden, but on our society. And I think a lot of it also has to do with the presidency that was lost and a group of people that can't accept defeat. So in any event, that's all I have for this morning. And I will see you tomorrow. Bye.